The Western Pacific chapter of the Design Build Institute of America presents a discussion on, has the cost of participating in best value selection processes made your business model unsustainable? This program was originally recorded on March 20th, 2012 at the Hotel Biltmore in Los Angeles. This recording will be divided into two parts. The first part will describe the problem and the various participants' take on this problem. The second part will describe some potential ideas that the participants have in hope of stimulating a national discussion on recommending new industry-wide best practices to be adopted by the practitioners and owners in participating in a best value selection process. The panelists in this program are Ed Wundram from Cumming, Joe Cvetas from Southland Industries, Jim Mueller from KMDArchitects, Dave Eichten from Pankow Builders, Lowell Shields from Capital Engineering, and I am your moderator, Bill Reifsteck.
I've been writing design build RFPs for almost 35 years now. I've seen some good ones and some bad ones. I've written some bad ones. I have not always argued against just asking for whatever the market will bear. However, as design build becomes the norm rather than the exception for large public projects, the paradigm has shifted, and suddenly these are not just a fling that a contractor will take in hope of getting one. It's now a matter of survival. With respect to the cost to prepare design build proposals and the corresponding stipends, I can offer the following comments. When dealing with public funds, the owner is obligated to only spend the minimum necessary to attract the target design build teams. So that's the worm on the end of the hook. If it's big enough, that's all he's obligated to spend, that's all he should spend. Not until the A teams in the industry politely and firmly turn down the RFPs that require excessive submittals and inadequate stipends will the owner reconsider their RFP strategies. The RFP is the owner's initial offering in a complex negotiation with the design builders. If you ever expect to change things, you will have to reject that first offer and suggest reasonable changes to their procurement process. I think the next move is the industry's.
We've been doing, as a firm, design build projects for over 20 years, perhaps 25 years. In my experience, and I function totally in the public sector, whereas maybe 15 years ago, 10 to 20% of our work was in alternative delivery methodologies. Now it's 80%. So it is the wave of the future, and there's good reason to think that it's a very productive project delivery methodology. I guess the first question one asks is, does design build do what it purports to do? And the Construction Industry Institute in Penn State did a study a few years ago comparing CM at risk, design bid build, and design build methodologies of project delivery. In every single what they call quality categories, design build beat both other delivery methods, and that included unit cost, cost growth, schedule growth, delivery time, and construction time. A friend of ours from Bell Construction did his own analysis of design build delivery and found that in design build, the time to arrive at construction improved 10 months over design bid build and 3 months over CM at risk. So there's evidence that suggests design build is a quality methodology of producing projects. The question for the design side of the equation is, can we afford to do it? Years ago when we started in it, selection of design build teams was based on quals. Teams represented themselves to an owner on their qualifications to perform in a particular project environment. The team was selected, and then the contract was negotiated, budgets established. Now, all that has changed. The criteria packages we see are overly prescriptive. They are incredibly demanding, and the at-risk cost to the design side of the equation is not sustainable as a business model. As an example, recently we were part of 4 teams competing for a project here in Southern California. The design team, the architect, just the architect, invested $450,000 at risk to participate in the proposal process. If you look at that as a designer, under a standard design bid build environment, we invest perhaps $50,000 worth of raw labor money in processing through a design bid build proposal process, including the interview. Well, do the numbers. Costs us 8 times as much to participate in a large design build environment. For me, that cost at risk is the equivalent of my total marketing budget for a year. So I have a very interesting business decision as to whether I even participate, because in design bid build environments, I can go after 8 projects rather than 1.
Well, I bring the consultant's perspective to the process, and you know, I'm very much on the same page relative to the opportunity to be creative. Like Jim's firm, a lot of our work has been public, and we started out being in Northern California doing a lot of work with the state, and we were on the ground floor with a lot of their very early design build projects, and so most of our experience early on was on the owner's side, and it was all about more is better, producing these very robust packages for bridging documents, and what that generates is a lot of ownership of not only the owner but the design criteria team on that design, and that really stifles a lot of creativity. On the last probably 2 to 3 years, I've participated on the other side of the fence a lot more, and I tell you, it's a real wake-up call, because these very large packages with lots of detail creates an enormous amount of challenges for us as consultants. We're trying to drive value and creativity in the process, and when you're trying to interpret documents and understand the intent of what the designer was thinking about, and trying to really balance whether or not there's a lot of ownership in that design and how far you can deviate, is really a challenge for us.
And Dave, when market conditions change, are you going to be more selective, or do you already feel you are selective?
So I think that we are starting to be more selective. Pankow has a history of doing design build work. Quite a bit of the work was early on was in the private sector, office buildings, hotels, parking structures, retail centers, those types of things. And now we're, I guess the private sector went away for a little while, and now we're looking more obviously at the public sector. So when we talk about the future, when things start to come back, we hope that we'll continue to see the private sector come back. We'll see some work in the private sector. But the public sector, I think the biggest thing we're going to look for on these pursuits is, during the pursuit time, some level of ability to communicate, some ability to get feedback. I liken it to, I was watching not too long ago that Apollo 13 movie, if you recall, with Tom Hanks. And you know, they go out in the spaceship and they get in trouble, and they start to head back to the planet Earth, and at one time they wake them up and they tell them, hey, we need to realign the spaceship so you land in the Indian Ocean, because otherwise you're going to miss the Earth, and you know, you go off. And very suspenseful moment, and he lines up the spaceship and then he launches it and they take off. And I kind of think about that, we talk about that a little bit internally. That's kind of how design build is. And when you launch these competitions, you need some ability to communicate and talk to people and sort of readjust course while you're traveling along. And if you don't have that ability, you miss Earth, right? You miss this, maybe not quite as dramatic, but it feels that way to those of us who are competing. You're launched off. If you don't have that ability to check in, you're headed in the wrong direction. We had a project where we were convinced, just absolutely convinced, that the way the RFP was written, that the project wanted to be three little buildings, all connected, but basically 3 buildings. And so we went to the first meeting. We were convinced it was just a brilliant idea. We were crying when we were looking at this. And we took it to the proposal, to the bugs, and to the voting members, and they looked at it for 30 seconds and said, we don't want 3 buildings. If we wanted 3 buildings, we would have told you we wanted 3 buildings. But it was great information to have early on in the process. It allowed us to adjust course and come up with a different way to execute the project. So that the ability to have those meetings to check in, check and adjust, have those, get that input from the client. That will be absolutely key. We went after a project recently where we had no check-ins and spent, let's say, X. We had another project where we went after and we spent 2X, but we had to check and adjust and we were successful with that project. I would rather pursue those projects where we can check in. And one suggestion was made here in our office in preparing for this. Another, just even further refinement would be a check and adjust meeting after the proposal is submitted, but before the BAFO goes in. So same sort of approach. Again, we've had the meetings, we've met, we've got it down to this, but it would be great to meet with the building user groups, all the different sort of stakeholders one last time before we submit the BAFO. So that, I think, is the number one thing we'll look for.
And Joe, from the subcontractor's standpoint, you gave me some great statistics the other day. You want to share those with us?
Yeah, sure. Good morning. Southland Industries is about a $400 million mechanical design build contractor. 80% of the work that we build is procured by some form of a best value design build process. Most of that work's in the public sector. In the last 7 to 8 years, it's been dominated by the federal government, state, county, some municipal work. Our pursuit costs for these competitions range from about 0.4% to 1% of our total mechanical contract value. So when you're speaking about a $100 million large healthcare facility, we're talking about pursuit costs ranging in up to $400,000 to $500,000. So these are significant dollars from a design build subcontractor's standpoint. Reasonable? Well, there's certainly more efficient means, more cost-effective approaches to achieving those results. I think one of the bigger issues for the design build subcontractors is the bridging issues, bridging versus non-bridging. Contrary to a lot of folks' belief, bridging documents actually cost us more to prepare a proposal than a non-bridged document. There's a tremendous amount of documents that are required to be reviewed when responding to a bridged set of documents. The team is constantly cross-checking the documents to ensure compliance. Obviously, the bridge documents severely limits design and innovation from the DB teams. And I also think the risk profile changes also. So subcontractors will allocate more contingency on their cost side. Basically, we're being asked to contract a plan and spec job, but carry the liability of the design process. So, I don't think there's a worse form of design build procurement than a heavily bridged set of documents.